Hello and welcome to this week's Lighthouse Devotionals. I'm going to be doing a three-part mini-series around the topic of the greatest needs of young people. Now, just to start with, I'm just urging you, please don't switch off if you're not a young person yourself, or if you're not actively involved in youth or schools work, because chances are you will be a parent or a grandparent, or at the very least, if you're involved in us as Lighthouse Church, we'd love you to commit to understanding better some of the issues that young people are going through and how we can support and pray for them in that. Many of you, I'm sure, will be aware of the concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where it's all about having the base kind of essentials of food and shelter and water met before you kind of move up the pyramid onto things like a sense of love and a sense of having achieved, and ultimately a sense of fulfillment. Well, here's what Maslow's hierarchy of needs looks like for young people today. And so just building on that, obviously, we all know how important Wi-Fi and battery charge are. But actually, it's a really tough time to be a young person. The Children's Society early in 2020 commissioned a report which discovered that young people in the UK are some of the saddest and least satisfied with their lives in the whole of Europe. And that was before the effects of COVID and lockdown, which have further exacerbated so many of the issues which they're facing. There's been a lot in the press about youth mental health crisis and how young people are really struggling to cope, and yet there is such a lack of support available for those struggling with their mental health at present. Other issues include the rise of screen time and social media. There's rising knife crime. We've got the county lines drug movement. There's sexual exploitation. There's homophobia. There's racism. There's been a rise in child poverty. And thankfully, it was great that so many of you at Lighthouse stepped up to help with Operation Pack Lunch, feeding hungry kids during the October half term. But issues around family breakdown, self-harm. On the one hand, we've got a rise in eating disorders. On the other hand, a rise in childhood obesity, rising youth homelessness. It's a really tough time to be a young person. And so many of these issues are really complex, deep, and multifaceted. And, in the next couple of days, we're only just going to scratch the surface of those. And I don't want to kind of be in a position where I think I'm offering easy answers, but I'm coming at this from the perspective of a youth worker, a youth pastor, but also as a dad who recognises that I probably get it wrong at least as much as I get it right. So we're doing, as I said, a three-part series. Now, normally, if it's a proper three-part series, they should all start with the same letter, or at the very least, they should rhyme. Now, I have to apologise and say that despite really trying hard to make that fit, I couldn't do it. But I have managed to get them into an ABC. So I was quite pleased with that. So here's my first point. My first key need for young people is the need for acceptance. We all need to be accepted. We all long that others might accept us. And I believe it's a key need underpinning so many of these issues that we're seeing is the need to be accepted. If I feel good about how I am, I'm less likely to be unkind, to target, to bully others. If I feel good about myself, perhaps I'm not as likely to feel such a level of stress about exams. If I feel accepted, then maybe I'm not as concerned about my physical appearance. Acceptance is at the core of so much of this. And I think for young people today, the challenge is even greater because of social media. Because when we're looking at other people's lives, we're seeing the best that they want to project. They're projecting the best of themselves, and we compare that with the ordinariness of our lives and think, well, I'm nothing like that. My life's not nearly as exciting, nearly as fulfilling as theirs, and we can feel down about ourselves. But we need to see beyond the Snapchat filters. We need to look authentically at one another. It's not just about the likes and about those who are following us on social media. Actually, we can feel a discord between what's presented and how we really are. And I think so many young people struggle with that feeling of guilt and shame, and kind of think, well, if you really knew what I was like, then you wouldn't accept me, then you wouldn't want anything to do with me. If you really knew some of the things that were in my head, then you couldn't possibly like me. But actually, at the core of the Christian faith, we have a message that says there's a God who loves you just as you are, a God who made you to be you, not to try and be a second-rate version of someone else, but to be the best possible version of who you were made to be. A God who says, I love you, I forgive you, I offer you acceptance. And that's just the start point today. We're going to come on in the next couple of days to look at the other key needs. But I just want to start with that point today, that young people really need to feel acceptance from us, but ultimately to know the acceptance that comes from the Creator God who loves them so much.